Srinivasan, Hari Om.
Hari Om, Anand, but just a second. Karthik is joining a little bit later. It's any time now. So
No problem. You tell me when I can start. I'll just keep it on. But I'll go on mute.
Jai Shri Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of the online Gita Parayan and Satsang for 2025. Before we start today's Gita Parayan and Satsang, just a quick reminder of a couple of events that are upcoming under the Gita Jayanti banner. So the first one, which is going to happen in a week's time, is Krishna Manjari, which is an expression of our devotion and love for Bhagavan through the medium of performance arts and through visual arts. So please join. The tickets are available at gitajayanti.org.sg. It's a $10 ticket or a $50 ticket. So please join in large numbers. We have an excellent singer, Vidushi Spurti Rao, who's going to be singing very soulful bhajans. So please join in. For the children, we have an art competition coming up in 2 weeks' time on the 14th of September. Please do go ahead and let the children whom you know, let them know so that they can register in large numbers. The theme, as you can see, is Krishna, the friend. Krishna is known to be a very good friend. So on that theme, we are going to explore not just through the Parayan is a way of knowing about friendship through conversation, but we are going to explore friendship through visual arts. So that's for the children. So please do encourage children whom you know to join in large numbers. So let us begin today's online Gita Parayan. We are going to have invocation prayers. There is a little bit of a change in the schedule. We are going to have the Gita Dhyanam and the Parayanam first before we have Sri Karthikeyan, who will be joining us, who is the president of one of the lead organizations, SDBBS, who's going to join us and give his address. Following the Parayan and following Shri Karthikeyan's talk, we will have Shri G. Bala, who is our session lecturer today. So he will give us some more explanation on Gita chapter 5 and chapter 6. So that's going to be the schedule for today. Let us get started. Our chanters today are Lata Balachandran ji and Nikhila Srihari ji. Welcome. Thank you very much for volunteering your time and for joining us for the online Gita Parayan. Let us begin with invocation prayers. Nikhila ji, could you please lead us in the invocation prayers, please?
Hari Om. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णु शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानां एकदन्तमुपास्महे श्रीगणेशाय नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि। Anand ji, can please take.
सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा।
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णौ वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरो हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैर्रहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारत पङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः कर्मसन्न्यासयोगः अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण पुनर्योगं च शंससि यच्छ्रेय एतयोरेकं तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम् श्रीभगवानुवाच सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात् कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते ज्ञेयः स नित्यसन्न्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते साङ्ख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यक् उभयोर्विन्दते फलम् यत्साङ्ख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगैरपि गम्यते एकं साङ्ख्यं च योगं च यः पश्यति स पश्यति सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो दुःखमाप्तुमयोगतः योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्म न चिरेणाधिगच्छति योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन् ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तो युक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते सर्वकर्माणि मनसा तन्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतो विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानम् येषान्नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम् तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः विद्या विनयसम्पन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पण्डिताः समदर्शिनः इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गः येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्माद् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढः ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत्सुखं स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखमक्षयमश्नुते ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगाः दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवो वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः योऽन्तः सुखोऽन्तरारामः तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैधायतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छते ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम पञ्चमोऽध्यायः।
अथ षष्ठोऽध्यायः आत्मसंयमयोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अनाश्रितः कर्मफलं कार्यं कर्म करोति यः स सन्न्यासी च योगी च न निरग्निर्न चाक्रियः यं सन्न्यासमिति प्राहुः योगन्तं विद्धि पाण्डव न ह्यसन्न्यस्तसङ्कल्पः योगी भवति कश्चन आरुरुक्षो मुनेर्योगं कर्म कारणमुच्यते योगारूढस्य तस्यैव शमः कारणमुच्यते यदा हिनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मस्वनुषज्जते सर्वसङ्कल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदोच्यते उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानमवसादयेत् आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत् जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चनः सुहृन्मित्रार्युदासीन मध्यस्थद्वेष्य बन्धुषु साधुष्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशिष्यते योगी युञ्जीत सततम् आत्मानं रहसि स्थितः एकाकीयत चित्तात्मा निराशीरपरिग्रहः शुचौ देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरमासनमात्मनः नात्युच्छ्रितं नातिनीचं चैलाजिनकुशोत्तरं तत्रैकाग्रं मनः कृत्वा यतचित्तेन्द्रियक्रियः उपवेश्यासने युञ्ज्यात् योगमात्मविशुद्धये समं कायशिरो ग्रीवं धारयन्नचलं स्थिरः सम्प्रेक्ष्य नासिकाग्रं स्वं दिशश्चानवलोकयन् प्रशान्तात्मा विगतभीः ब्रह्मचारी व्रते स्थितः मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तः युक्त आसीत मत्परः युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगी नियतमानसः शान्तिर्निर्वाणपरमां मत्संस्थामधिगच्छति नात्यश्नतस्तु योगोऽस्ति न चैकान्तमनश्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन युक्ताहारविहारस्य युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यः युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा यथा दीपो निवातस्थः नेङ्गते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यतचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यत्रो परमते चित्तं निरुद्धं योगसेवया यत्र चैवात्मनात्मानं पश्यन्नात्मनि तुष्यति सुखमात्यन्तिकं यत्तत् बुद्धिग्राह्यमतीन्द्रियं वेत्ति यत्र न चैवायं स्थितश्चलति तत्त्वतः यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचाल्यते तं विद्यात् दुःखसंयोगवियोगं योगसंज्ञितं स निश्चयेन योक्तव्यः योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा संकल्पप्रभवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः मनस्सैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः शनैः शनैरुपरमे बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत् यतो यतो निश्चरति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरं ततस्ततो नियम्यैतत् आत्मन्येव वशं नयेत् प्रशान्तमनसं ह्येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतमकल्मषं युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मषः सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम् अत्यन्तं सुखमश्नुते सर्वभूतस्थमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि ईक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा सर्वत्र समदर्शनः यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति योऽर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगी परमो मतः अर्जुन उवाच योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्याहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिरां चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढं तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम् श्रीभगवानुवाच असंशयं महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहं चलम् अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येण च गृह्यते असंयतात्मना योगः दुष्प्राप इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु यतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः अर्जुन उवाच अयति श्रद्धयोपेतः योगाच्चलितमानसः अप्राप्य योगसंसिद्धिं काङ्गतिं कृष्ण गच्छति कच्चिन्नो भयविभ्रष्टः छिन्नाभ्रमिव नश्यति अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो विमूढो ब्रह्मणः पथि एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण छेत्तुमर्हस्य शेषतः त्वदन्य संशयस्यास्य छेत्ता न ह्युपपद्यते श्रीभगवानुवाच पार्थ नैवेह नामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति प्राप्य पुण्यकृतान् लोकान् उषित्वा भूत्वा शाश्वती समाः शुचीनां श्रीमताङ्गेः योगभ्रष्टोऽभिजायते अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरं लोके जन्म यदीदृशम् तत्र तं बुद्धिसंयोगं लभते पौर्वदेहिकं यतते च ततो भूयः संसिद्धौ कुरु नन्दन पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव क्रियते ह्यवशोऽपि सः जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते प्रयत्नाद्यतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्ध किल्बिषः अनेकजन्म संसिद्धः ततो याति परां गतिम् तपस्विभ्योऽधिको योगी ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्चाधिको योगी तस्माद्योगी भवार्जुन योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमो मतः। ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे आत्मसंयमयोगो नाम षष्ठोऽध्यायः। अथ गीता माहात्म्यम्। गीताशास्त्रमिदं पुण्यं यः पठेत् प्रयतः पुमान् विष्णोः पदमवाप्नोति भयशोकादिवर्जितः। गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामपरस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्म कृतानि च। मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसां जलस्नानं दिने दिने सकृत् गीताम्भसि स्नानं संसारमलनाशनम्। गीता सुगीता कर्तव्या किमन्यैः शास्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखपद्माद्विनिसृता भारतामृतसर्वस्वं विष्णोर्वक्त्राद्विनिसृतम्। गीता गङ्गोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। एकं शास्त्रं देवकी पुत्रगीतम् एको देवो देवकी पुत्र एव। एको मन्त्रस्तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा। ॐ तत्सत्। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम श्री कृष्णार्पणमस्तु।
Thank you very much, Lataji and Nikhilaji, for the wonderful chanting of chapters 5 and 6 of the Gita. I will now invite Sri L. Karthikeyan, who is the president of Singapore Dakshina Bharata Brahmana Sabha, one of the lead organizations of the Gita Jayanti, to address everyone. Just for your information, Singapore Dakshina Bharata Brahmana Sabha is a 100-year-old organization It just celebrated its centenary last year, and it has been a great supporter of the Gita Jayanti activities. Shri Karthikeyan, over to you.
Hari Om. Are you able to hear me, Anand?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hari Om, everyone. Pranams to the Lord and pranams to the Devis and Mahatmas present in the session today. As Anand said, I've been asked to give an introduction for chapter 5 and 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Before a more detailed discourse by the speaker of the day, Sri Bala. And Sri Bala has been a student of the Gita for a very long time, and I'm able to say that with confidence because he was one of the early speakers in the Sabha. Sabha used to have this quarterly lecture series, and Bala was one of the early speakers. And he came and gave a talk on Gita in business. And this was, definitely pre-COVID, and we had started QLS probably in the 2015, 2016. So he's been definitely a very long and committed student of the Gita. So I'm very confident that his talk today will be very informative, engaging, and enlightening to all of us. Now, coming back to my role to introduce the subject of today, which is chapter 5 and 6. These two chapters are part of the Prathama Shadgam, or the first section of the first 6 chapters of the Gita. And basically, the first section talks about the individual, the jiva, and the importance of the individual effort, which is the jiva prayatna, and the individual what he has to do, which is the karma yoga. And after giving an overview of the jiva's problem in the first chapter, which is raga, moha, and shoka, Bhagavan then gives the complete overview of the solution in the second chapter, right? Which is, in some, if you have to just summarize it, just karma yoga and jnana yoga. And close to the later part of the chapter, he also gives the details of how a person who has attained this information about karma yoga and jnana yoga, and how he is able to live a life of a jnani, as he calls it, sthita pragya in the chapter, and how he moves around in the society. And anyone and everyone can become a jnani. I mean, that's another key message that comes out of it. And the only requirement being shraddha and the commitment and all the things that are required to prepare the mind, the chitta shuddhi and the chitta ekagrita, to obtain and assimilate this knowledge. And once assimilated, it becomes like the tambura shruti. That's at the background of any singer, right? Because the singer can then rely on the tambura shruti to ensure that the performance in the concert is wonderful. So upper shruti illame, it becomes, very smooth and good. Similarly, a jnani can fall back on the teachings anytime and every time when faced with the problems in the world. Then he goes to the third chapter where, it's a deep dive into karma yoga, what needs to be done, what are the components of karma yoga. And then the fourth chapter talks about the most important attitude by which one should do the actions, the karma, the key attitude that one should have, which is the akarta and abhokta. There are many of this is required, but the most important one is being akarta and abhokta, meaning one is neither having the attitude that one is neither a doer nor an enjoyer, because you associate yourself with the Brahman or the Atma. And that's why the fourth chapter is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Unfortunately, like Arjuna and like Arjuna, many of us would have a doubt about this word sannyasa. And like Arjuna, he was ready to interpret this as giving up karma, which is giving up his duty. Which in Arjuna's case, it happened in the battlefield in Kurukshetra, and Rishikesh is not far away. So he was ready to run away from the battlefield because he was going to fight his kith and kin. He didn't want to do it, and he just wanted to run away to become a sannyasi. At least that's what he thought he could run away from. So hence the fifth chapter, it's a good segue into the fifth chapter because it clarifies what is meant by sannyasa. So the chapter begins actually with Arjuna's question as to how a person can remain in duty and be free from actions at the same time. So then Bhagavan talks about the two lifestyles, the grihastha and the sannyasi, and that having been in either of them, one would be able to attain the goal, which is moksha, and it's attained through self-knowledge, right? But what is necessary in both the lifestyle is, the most important aspect is being free from raga and dvesha. There is likes and dislikes, or very extreme likes and dislikes. So he clearly says that for a common man like us, getting self-knowledge and not having emotional attachment or hatred to the world, defined as people's, objects, and situations. That's the most important aspect. And trying to get this knowledge by leading a secluded life or a sannyasa kind of life, wearing ochre robes, not knowing what's going to happen for your next meal, where you're going to, the roof over your head, all that, it's very difficult for all of us. So it requires a lot of maturity, and the message given is, this is the sannyasa, kind of life, as we all understand, normal parlance understand, is a very difficult one. So being a grihastha itself, one can be a sannyasa, an emotional sannyasa from an emotional aspect, and that's the key message that's in chapter 5. A lot more details will be given by Sri Bala. I don't want to steal the thunder from him. Now, moving on to chapter 6, I mentioned earlier about the Tambura Shruti example. Now, the self-knowledge that we gain by this Shravanam, which is listening to these discourses, or even being in satsang like this, and Mananam, which is basically clearing all our doubts, that knowledge needs to be assimilated. It has to become part of us, available to us anytime and everywhere. And again, I want to give a very common example, which is, learning to drive a car. Once we have learned to drive the car, and when we see an obstacle in the front, while driving the car, you obviously have an instructor, prompting us, saying, do this, do that, turn right, turn left, press your brake, and all that. But once we have learned to drive the car, when we see an obstacle on the road, we don't need an external prompt for us to go and press the brakes, right? It becomes second nature. The automatically the right leg moves from the accelerator pedal to the brake pedal, right? So similarly, the self knowledge should be available to us, and that can happen only once we master the art of dhyanam or meditation. Now, meditation is not on the worldly things. I mean, that's what typically we do, right? But we should not be on the worldly things, but on Brahman or Atma or the self, which is the core teaching in the 6th chapter. So basically, one should move from having an extroverted mind to a contemplative mind, is the essence of that, in the chapter. So the 6th chapter is all about how one should prepare oneself, both from an external and internal angle, then to assimilate and internalize this knowledge that we have gained in chapter 2 and 4. So that's the key thing. For me, two most important aspects stand out in this chapter, and I'm sure Balaji, Sri Bala would kind of deep dive into all of that. But for me, the first is the importance of confidence and self-effort, and Ishvara Anugraha. So these are the two important aspects: confidence and effort, and Ishvara Anugraha, for being successful in life. So you need these two things. So one can equate that again to an example that we can quickly relate to. Imagine a train going up the hill, going up the mountain. You have an engine in the front, which is the pull part, and then you have the push engine. There's another engine at the back that pushes the train up. So you need both the pull engine and the push engine for the train to go up the hill or the mountain. Or another good example is that of a bird. It needs both its wings to flap very well, to fly from the ground and fly higher and higher. So you need to have both the wings to fly. So you need to have the self-confidence, the self-effort that one needs to put in, and you also have to have the Ishvara Anugraha. Many different words are used. You can call it fate, you can call it prarabdha, you can call it by any names, but finally it kind of boils down to that. That's the first message. The second message is what everyone in today's fast-moving, digital, result-oriented world is all worried about, right? Now, okay, I do the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam and all that. I put in a lot of time. As they say, to go through all the verses of the Gita, 700 verses, it takes about 5.5 years. let's say you attend a 1 week every Sunday, or every 1 week, 1 day in a week, 1 hour, and then it takes 2.5 years to go through the entire Gita. So what will happen if I don't attain the moksha goal, as the Gita kind of promises, right? If I'm not able to attain this moksha goal in this janma, in this lifetime, then all my effort and time goes to waste, right? And in today's world, one can say I could have spent this time doing some analysis, sitting in front of the Bloomberg terminal, analyzing some stocks, and putting some options trading and all that. I could have spent more time making money, right? So Bhagwan, then, knowing that, knowing the individual of today, he actually gives a guarantee. He gives a guarantee that whomsoever is committed to this path in this janma will get a Manushya Janma in the next birth, and then will continue from where one has left in this Janma. So again, you can use a normal example. It's like the bookmark. You start reading a book, you're not able to complete it. You use a bookmark to, to indicate where you want to start, right? When you come back. So it's something similar to that. So the Yoga Brashya topic is, again, a very, very interesting topic that comes about in the last 10 verses of chapter 6. So with this quick introduction, I wish you all the best, and to get even more details about this chapter, you get more enlightened about both chapter 5 and 6 with Sri Bala's talk. Thanks once again to the Gita Jayanti Organizing Committee for inviting me to deliver this introductory piece. Anand, over to you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karthikeyanji. Thank you for that summary of of the earlier chapters, and a little bit of introduction to 5 and 6 to just, this is like the appetizer before we have the full course from Sri Bala, who is our speaker for the day. So may I now invite Sri Bala, who is our speaker for the day, to deliver his talk. But before that, a quick introduction to Sri Bala. He is a retired ethics and compliance officer in a multinational organization. He has a very deep and abiding interest in Sanatana Dharma. Like Sri Karthik mentioned, he has given a lot of talks before this also. He is part of a global satsang group called Jivan Mukta. And he likes to share his, the teachings about the Gita, and not just the Gita, but also other Sanatana Dharma scriptures. He's a very, person who likes to read a lot. And I think one of the key things you will notice in his talk also is that he can quote references from, scriptures, and quickly move on to management books and draw connections between them quite very seamlessly. And I think that is something which we will come to enjoy in his talk now. May I now invite Sri Bala. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Karthik, I had almost forgotten the Brahmana Sabha talk. So I'm going to share my screen. First of all, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You could try adjusting your camera a little bit if it's possible, so that you're completely, yes, that's great. And you should have the rights to share the screen.
All the mess behind me also is seen, but I can't help it. Okay. Let me share the screen and see whether this works. I've not tried it on this medium, but let's see. Is it visible now?
It's visible. It's a Zoom screen which is visible. You might want to switch over to your presentation screen.
So, sorry, give me a minute. It's asking for some passwords and other things.
Okay.
How do I share this one?
You can now hit stop share. Or you can hit new share. At the bottom, you see something called new share. You press that.
Okay, let me try.
At the bottom.
Okay, new share.
Share,
Oh,
yes. Please click on that.
Yeah.
And do you see something which says, which shows your presentation?
It says allow to share window, allow to share screen, don't allow. Those are
You
the
can
things.
say allow to share window.
Window, okay.
Yes.
To share this window, it says. So I have to go
Not
back
share
to
this window. Oh, maybe you should. You can say share screen.
Okay.
Maybe hit new share again. Then say share screen.
And then I open up that
The
file.
presentation.
Then.
Yes, please.
Sorry about this. Let me see.
Yes.
Is it
Yes,
okay?
please.
Okay.
Yes. And you can, yeah, that's
This is
perfect.
good enough, right?
This is
Very
good.
simple.
Maybe you can reduce the side a little bit so that the screen is visible. Yes.
Yep.
Go to the slideshow and
Yeah,
that
slideshow. Yeah, slideshow.
Okay.
Please go to slideshow, the bottom right side.
the
Yes.
slideshow. No,
Yes,
correct.
that's perfect. We are able to see it clearly.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your help. I will start with the invocation to Bhagwan, my Guruji. Pranams to the Lord Krishna. Pranams to our Guruji. Pranams to all of you, Devis and Mahatmas. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk and share. As you can know, I like to talk, but I don't like to do on computers, and share screen is new to me. So, Om Guru Pyo Namah. So let me quickly walk through the themes in chapter 5, and later we'll go to chapter 6. Just to give you a broad overview, Karthik ji had already covered a lot of stuff. I think he touched on all the essential points. So let me just develop it a little further. First question is, how does it link to chapter 4? Because throughout the Gita, we will see that there is a link from chapter to chapter, and we need to be a little more intuitive to be able to get that link. And what is the importance of this title? Each title has got some importance. So this is an intriguing title, Sannyasa Yoga. What exactly does it mean? And then the first basic starting point is all about Arjuna's question on Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Sannyasi. What's a lifestyle? And then little bit later, Lord Krishna will explain to us actually who's a Karma Yogi and who's a Sankhya Yogi. And some bit of this theme continues in chapter 6 again. And then if you want to be one of these, what do we do? What are the essential sadhanas? And throughout the chapter 5, a lot of sadhanas have been given, practical applications. Then finally, a little bit about if you were to achieve it now, here and now, Jivan Mukti, and what happens to you after you pass away and leave up the mortal coils, the physical body comes to an end, and that's called Videha Mukti. And then a segue into what is chapter 6. So that's briefly. And the whole teachings are always, most chapters I would say, triggered out by Arjuna's question to Lord Krishna. And here he says, you are praising Karma Sannyasa, you're also praising Karma Yoga. Which is better for me? Similar question in chapter 3, where Lord says that there are two paths available. Here too is confused because chapter 4 spoke a lot about the importance of knowledge. And he says there is no purifier like knowledge. And then with that you can cross over the samsara with the boat of knowledge. All sorts of things. Also said that it will burn away all your past karma. So naturally, Arjuna is curious, and so are we, because Lord is addressing not only Arjuna, but he's talking to each of us. Is that the way to get this knowledge? The only way that we know of, as we can think, and generally is known that you become a sannyasi, isolate yourself, go and get secluded in some ashram or in the Himalayas or in some jungle, and then spend all the time reading, doing this Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana type of studies. What Swami Paramarthananda calls a consistent and systematic study of the scriptures, though he adds under the guidance of a competent guru. So, is that the way to go? Or now that you saw it, because the last verse in chapter 4 talked about just go ahead and fight. That's your duty that you're doing. But with this knowledge, go ahead and fight. So he says, okay, which means he's also urging me to action. So what should I do now? I mean, you're telling me get the knowledge. I think for knowledge, I want a different environment. and then you're saying also go and fight, and I'm doing the most ghastly of all actions by killing people. So how do I get this knowledge? So please tell me. So because in 207, he has already surrendered to the Lord and asked him to be his guru. And in 434, the Lord is telling him, go and seek this knowledge from a guru. And the Lord Krishna is standing in front of him, he is his guru. So verses 2 to 6. First of all, let's talk about the significance of the title, because sannyasa. So Lord clarifies here what is sannyasa really. Sannyasa doesn't really mean that you have to let go of you change your dress, let go of possessions, isolate yourself, seclude yourself, leave your home, family, and go off and become a monk. The answer is not that. And perhaps the reason is, I'm just guessing, that in the Vedic times, when this 5,000 years ago, when all this was being talked about, the most common way was following what Sanatana Dharma had as the Varnashrama, where you seek different ashramas, starting with Brahmacharya, then moving into Grahastha, then Vanaprastha, and then finally Sannyasa. And as we do that, the escalation of reading scriptures and gaining knowledge also starts progressing. And it culminates in moksha, which happens in those days. It used to say that, okay, you have to go into Anaprastha, let go, and then become a sannyasi. So that's the significance, is what really is this yoga, which is sannyasa yoga. Yoga being linking back many different explanations, more than 100 ways in which yoga has been quoted in the Gita. And one of them, of course, the most common one used is the union with Bhagwan, the ultimate union or communion. And so that's the significance. And what are all the options? Very briefly, Karthik touched upon the two options, sannyasa and being karma yogi or grahastha. So if you take the varnashrama dharma, it says that the ashramas should be starting with brahmacharya, compulsory for all, because all of them have to go and get a very hefty dose of scriptural reading so that the whole society becomes ethical. And then comes the grahastha, where you go and then start serving and enjoying samsara, at the same time earning enough resources so that you can support the brahmacharya, you can support the vanaprasthas, the retired people, and you can support the sannyasis. So grahastha is a very important foundation of Sanatana Dharma. And then gradually one grows up, finishes all that, reaches retirement stage, has got children, grandchildren, and they're moving into vanaprastha, where slowly you start letting go of things in a very progressive manner and seamlessly shift into sannyasa. So that was the adopted lifestyle in those days. So naturally, that is the roadmap that was given. But what is the roadmap for the spiritual path? If our goal is to gain liberation, Jivan Mukti as it is, what do we do? And so Swami Paramarthananda, whose teachings I've used a lot along with what our Guruji has taught us, talks about the different stages as to starting with Karma Yoga, because Karma Yoga takes care of the malam, the very hardened emotional agitations we have, whether it is in extreme joy, or extreme sorrow. So Karma Yoga is recommended as the lifestyle that one has to get rid of Raga Dvesha, which Karthik alluded to, is the very violent hates and likes. And Karma Yoga, by doing their duty with equanimity, which helps us to slowly still down all these violent agitations of the mind. But you will notice that as we start progressing, perhaps you have started now becoming a little more tranquil, but the mind still seems to be restless, and it thinks of maybe what they call 60,000 thoughts, they say in psychology, of which perhaps just 2,000 are something new, 58,000 are useless, same thought being regurgitated again and again. So, how do we stabilize the mind? How do you make it tranquil and get that ekagrata? It's by going into upasana, which is dhyanam, which is chapter 6 is talking about. And then finally moving into the third stage, where now we are ready, and then we go and acquire some competencies, and we are ready for acquiring that jnanam, which is the jnana yoga part, which finally, once with the jnanam in hand, and once we are convinced, we then lead a lifestyle which is conducive to live as a jnani, which is again talked about in this chapter. So that's the big picture roadmap. And we will be, so far Lord Krishna has covered everything about the Karma Yoga part, knowledge part, Jnana part in chapter 2. And in this chapter, he's touching more of the Jnana part. And almost we can say that with this, he's completed everything, but then he brings in Dhyana because the mind is still restless, so he needs to bring in Dhyana. And one would think that 1 to 6, everything is done. So the knowledge, the teachings are complete, but we know that there are chapters 7 all the way up to 18. And we know that the speakers who are to come after this session will tell us about the necessity of those chapters. So moving on, what actually is a karma yogi? Now, karma is action. We all do action because, as the Lord says, without action one cannot be rested. Even maintenance of the body requires some kind of action. Thinking also is an action. So, but what makes it from a karma to a karma yogi, from a karma yoga, from a typical person who's active karmi, as they call one who's acting, to a karma yogi. Few things that distinguish this. One is the karma has to be nishkama karma, by which it means get rid of all selfish desires, expand it to cover many people other than just me and mine. The In fact, Viveka Chudamani talks about the bliss that is within us, and the only way we can get rid of it is by expanding and becoming more selfless. And what will happen is once we become selfless, the selfish desires go down. In a way, all desires will start dwindling, and the only desire would be to go and serve the world and do something good to uplift people, like what Swami Vivekananda always had. But in what kind of attitude should we do that? Chapter 3 talked about Karma Yoga very much in detail. But here again, we stress that the Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, doing everything as a dedication to the Lord, is a must. And Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, accepting everything that comes. Now, once you're dedicated it to Bhagwan, everything comes back from Him. Like you give a gift, you get a return gift, so it comes back from Him. And you have to take it as a prasadam from the temple. And again, why prasadam? Because that anytime you get a prasadam, the mind is that you feel blessed. Typically, you go to say a bookshop and there is a book launch, for example, and the book that you want to buy is the one where the author is signing and autographing it. And if it happens to be a spiritual book and there is a Swamiji signing, say Swami Sarvapriyananda, who does write a few books now and then, suppose he signs, then the book will have an extra value to it. So you treat it as something with respect, with some kind of devotion. So similarly, anything that comes, anything we face in life, we take it as a prasadam. And verses 10, 11, and 12 talk a little bit about that and say, okay, so I've jumbled up a bit because we rearranged the verses to suit the themes. So for a karma yogi, what is relevance would be the verses 10, 11, and 12, where 10 gives us a word picture, a visualization of how such a person would be, because it says that this person will Brahmani Adhaya will dedicate everything to the Lord, and then after dedicating acts without any attachment, which again Lord talked about in 2.47 earlier. And without attaching anything, he becomes a non-doer. He becomes instead a nimitta, a person who's an instrument of the Lord to get something done. And such a person is not affected by the results. Papam is said, but papam can also be extended to say the results of the karma. Just like the simile given is the lotus leaf is not wetted by water. We all know the graphic picture of a lotus standing very pristine in a muddy pond because the lotus leaf is coated with a particular chemical which does not allow any of the water, the muddy water or good water, to stick on it, which just falls down. So the lotus stands very pristine. And this lotus analogy has been used throughout. Lotus aksha eyes or lotus pada, lotus feet. Throughout it's been used because it's regarded as one of the very pristine thing which we can visualize to see this is how pure we want to be. But then a question will come, what is this dedication one is talking about? Is there a physical thing? Are we supposed to go every time to the altar, to a temple, take a picture in front of us and say, I'm doing this? Actually, it's all mental. And there is a little story that comes from Tansen and Akbar. Many of you will be probably familiar with it. We all know Tansen was the Navaratna, the jewel in the court of Akbar, and his songs were just fantastic. And Akbar used to get ecstatic, just listen to it and transported to a very divine enjoyment of that. And then he is praising Tansen, and Tansen is saying, Jahanpana, you are praising me, but you haven't heard my Guru. And when you listen to him, I'm nothing before him. And Akbar is very curious. He says, okay, I want to see him. And so Tansen says, okay, don't tell him. Let's go hide near his place and see, watch him sing and listen to him. And so they go secretly in hiding and watch Maharaja Haridas, who's the Guru of Tansen, sing. And when he's singing with his eyes closed, his mind is somewhere else. He seems to be transported in a different world. And just the music itself, the songs, everything comes out. It's so divine that Akbar is very moved. And then he's asking Tansen, what is the secret here? So Tansen says, let me tell you, Jahanpana, when I sing for you. I sing for money. I sing for you to praise me. So that you'll give me something, praise me, I'll always be in your court and I'll get something to take care of myself, my family, and get a name, fame, reputation. But my Guru does not bother about any of these things. He only sings for one, that is Bhagwan. So when he sings, his mind is attached on Bhagwan, he's anchored on Bhagwan, and that is what is meant by dedicating all our actions. Can we do that? So Karthik ji talked about the Tambura Shruti, where we always have something in the background of our mind, which is the tune playing to us. So can we do everything? And our Guruji says, just start the day with Krishna Arpanamastu, end the day with Krishna Arpanamastu. Whatever happens in between, wherever you can remember, just say. But you have sandwiched all your actions from the beginning of the day to the end of the day to Lord Krishna, and in a way, this is what dedication means. Then I'll move on. 11 and 12, similar tune. I didn't, for want of time, I can't go for verse by verse. But he says, main thing is you perform these actions, and in 11, very clearly, Lord Krishna says, you're doing it for Chitta Shuddhi. Karma Yoga is meant as an instrument for Chitta Shuddhi. You use it to clean up your mind, to clean up all those emotional attachments that is within you, so that you get ready for the next stage of learning. And then finally, he says that with that, what will happen? You will get enormous peace. Now, let's see what happens if you want to be a Jnana Yogi or Sankhya Yogi. Now, these terms are a little interchangeable. It's been used throughout the Gita. But Sankhya, the philosophy is not accepted by Vedanta, but the sadhanas given in Sankhya has been adopted by Vedanta, and you'll see more of that in chapter 6. So, verses 7, 8, 9 talks about how does a Sankhya Yogi or a Jnani live his life. This kind of a Jnani says that everything that I've done, I am nothing. I'm just the Atma sitting, and all the actions that are taking place. And he gives a list of different actions that a person typically has to do. And those are like closing your eyes, opening your eyes, sleeping, eating, all sorts of things. Every action that we can think of. He says that na karomi manyet. So I don't do anything. Aham na karomi. I am not doing all these things. Actually, it's done by my gunas. It's done by prakriti. It's done by my body, mind, and intellect. I'm just the witness watching it. And that is the attitude which Gita again and again encourages to have. So, taking it further in verse 13, he says it is similar. Again, the description given is to a person in what is called the Navadwara Puri, the 9-hole gate, or a fortress, which is basically our body. So this person just sits and watch everything going on. In the midst of all this activity, this person is totally calm. Why? Because he's identified with the Atma. So chapter 2 talked about it, where he says that you are not really this body, mind, intellect, you are the Atma. So you change your identity to that of an Atma. So what happens now? There is again a small story. Sounds very silly at times, but very closely tells us how this is all about. So there is a person, what they call in ancient days the peon in Indian offices, especially government offices, little unpad, not very educated. So he goes and does all sorts of menial jobs before the age of digital invasion. files, manual papers, and probably still prevalent in government offices in India, gets transferred from desk to desk, from table to table, from person to person. So this is the main job of the peon, make some menial things like making tea or coffee for his boss. And the boss keeps criticizing him. You are no good, you're stupid, and all sorts of things. And this fellow gets dejected. So one day he goes to a Swamiji who's near his house and sees, Swamiji, this is what is happening. Can you give me some kind of a way to get out of this? So Swamiji asks him, what is your name, beta? He says, my name is Ramu. He says, very simple. From now, from this moment onward, you are not Ramu, you're Somu, but don't tell anyone. He's very happy. He's thinking what happened. But then he goes, now he has a new identity. He says he's Somu, but no one knows. He goes to the office, the boss criticizes him, abuses him, calls him all sorts of names, but he's addressing Ramu. And this fellow is smiling and nothing seems to matter because he knows it's addressing someone else. He's not addressing me, so why should I bother? So some of the other office staff, after a couple of days, are very curious and ask him, hey, how come you used to get so worked up, so depressed, and now nothing seems to matter to you? So he says, I'll tell you a secret, please don't tell boss. My name is actually not Ramu, it is Somo. So he's abusing Ramu. I have nothing to do with it. So I am a witness to what is happening. Nothing happens to me. So this is exactly the attitude of a person who's a Jnana Yogi. And this is where 13 verse says, also 7, 8, 9 says that this is how you should be. That just be indifferent to what's going on, watch it as a sakshi, and then do whatever you need to do in the transactional world, but with the firm conviction that you are the Atma. And then it takes it up further, all the way from 13 to 21. It talks about what should this person do. I'll just touch upon a few of these things. 17 is a very powerful verse. It says that this is the goal. What is the goal of this person? That their whole buddhi has got only one goal, which is established in Brahman. And the Atmana. Now, Atma again is used very differently. Sometimes it is the body, mind, intellect, the self. Sometimes it's the Bhagwan, the Brahman. So here he says that they have only Brahman as the supreme goal, and they are permanently established. The Nishtha is all on Brahman. But what is distinguishing them from other people is that their impurities are completely have been destroyed by the by jnanam, by whatever they have gained. And such a person will have the goal of non-returning. Punarvritim. So which means they will not come back. They will seek, once they pass away, they are not going to come back to this world of samsara. No reincarnation of them. What is the other feature? They have in 18, it says that they look upon the Brahmana who's got knowledge, who's with humble. They look upon him and a cow and an elephant and go to the other extreme, a dog or even a dog eater with the same attitude. And what is this attitude? Because they see everybody is Atma. They see what is called Sarvatma Bhuta. So they see that every being is the Atma, and I can see the Atma, and I can see that whatever actions are being done by them, whatever words are being said by them, is all because of their gunas. Again, we can recollect this way back in chapter 3, 27, 28, 29, where he says that the jnani can see the other person doing this and knows that it is the guna at play. And how does it help? It helps because then you don't criticize the other person, you don't get very agitated, you don't get some kind of hatred. Ragadvesha is ruled out because you only see oneness in all of them. And this Atma, which we say that is within me, is within them, and it's actually the same Atma within all. And Swami Paramathananda has got a wonderful technique which he calls a FIR for handling such agitations. What is FIR? One he says is the frequency. The frequency with which such things happen. At the end of the day or at periodical intervals throughout the day, find out and make a note of how many times we got agitated, whether with extreme joy or with some kind of sorrow, with some kind of dislike, and see how did that agitation manifest into your speech. Did you raise your voice? Did you say angry things? The tone became very strident. How did it manifest? And did it then further manifest into action? Did you become very like stiff or raised your hand as if you wanted to hit somebody, kick somebody? So FIR is frequency, I is intensity, where we chart, is it just at a thought level, this agitation? Did it manifest into a talk, into our communications, and did it manifest into a body action? So the third is recovery. R is how long did it take, or let me turn positively, how soon did we recover from this? Were we like what is called the Daruma doll, the doll that you see with a very heavy base, which you tilt, it comes back to same again. You tilt again, it becomes vertical again. Did we act like that, where the recovery was almost instantaneous? Did we brood about it the whole day, for hours together, for days together, for years together? And there are instances where people don't talk to each other, and the hatred they carry is festering inside, eating them away like acid, and which is not good. So once you start measuring, management literature says that anything you start looking at, measuring, and then trying to work on it and seeing how you can improve on it, definitely will improve. Many experiments, want of time, I can't talk about it. But main thing is, can we make a note of FIR? How frequently did the agitation happen? How intense was it? And how soon did we recover back to our normal key? And once we do that, definitely he says that whatever we are doing in Karma Yoga, which is acquiring samatvam, will start working, and we'll get samatvam very soon. Moving on, he says that what are some of the sadhanas we should do? So I'll take up verse number 22, where he talks very powerfully of a theme, where he says that, again I'm quoting Swami Paramarthananda, he says that when you look at Vishayas, so our scripture says that everything, every object in the world, like what Karthik ji said, people, objects, situations, are all there as a Vishaya, as something that is there as an object. But when we look at it through the window of our mental model, our mind, we color it with adjective. Then it becomes good, it becomes bad, it becomes unbearable, something becomes very hot, something becomes very cold, all sorts of things. And from Padhartha, which is an object, we convert it into a Vishaya, which is actually an object, but with our own attributes added. So, in the world of psychology, if you're familiar with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, they talk about mental models. Each one carries a mental model, and through this mental model, it's like a window through which we are looking at others. And a simple example given is that of a lady who's watching the neighbor's washing, which is hanging out, and she's always criticizing it to her husband and saying how dirty the clothes look. And one day she gets very excited and comes back and tells her husband that our neighbor has learned how to clean clothes because the clothes look very clean. And then the husband smiles and he says, all I did was clean the window. The window was dirty, streaked with dirt. And when you look through such a dirty window, whatever appears to you appears dirty. Similarly, if our mind has not been cleansed, whatever comes out, whatever the way we look at it through the mind using our senses, will always look colored. So that's why the scriptures emphasize on chitta shuddhi, or cleansing our mind. Moving on, what does 22 say? 22 says that everything in this world is temporary. If you know this, it is temporary, you will not attach so much importance. What does that meaning? Meaning that you will not give it so much importance that you think that this is the only source of joy, because it's not going to last, it's going to perish very soon. So once we take that attitude and use this as a sadhana and create a mental model within ourselves where we know this thing will last, enjoy it, but don't get too attracted by it, don't get too hooked onto it, and let it go. Don't get very sorrowful. Maybe a minute, like Swamiji says, that you may get very agitated and say, what? How did this happen? And then immediately you convert it to, so what? Okay, so what if it happens? I know it will happen. I know it's perishable. Again, Lord Krishna refers to this in chapter 8, 8.15. Again, he says, it's dukkha yoni. This world is nothing but a womb for all kinds of sorrow. And then verse 23, what does he say? That if you're able to manage that impulse, which is born of desire and anger, the impulse being vegam and kama krodha udbhavam, then what will happen is you feel at peace. This is exactly what Arjuna asked way back in chapter 3, where he says, we know all these things, yet we are not able to apply it, and we get drawn back into all the old habits again. And again, want of time, but there's a very powerful book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, where he talks about this huge power of habit, and we are driven by habit. We are driven by habit to commit exactly what we do, and Lord Krishna is saying that is not right. So you need to cleanse your mind so that you get rid of the old vasanas, the samskaras, and start looking at it afresh. And that way, he says, if you are able to manage that impulse, then you are assured of peace now and peace in the future when you die. And then finally, Jivan Mukti, they have 24, 25, 26, where he says you will attain Jivan Mukti, which means that you will be free of agitations because you identify yourself as a jnani with the Atma, with Bhagwan, and then you will continue to transact in this world without getting emotionally attached and having this raga desha that we talked about so much. And after you die, then you will attain Videhamuti. That means you won't be born again. Transmigration is not for you. What is all this? Chapter 8, we'll talk about it a little much in detail. Chapter 15, chapter 14, all of them will refer to that. So hold on to your curiosity. There's more to come. And then finally, 27 and 28 is a segue into the next chapter, which is about dhyana. And there he gives some essentials as to how to sit, how to focus, how to breathe, and what sort of essential preparations are needed. But more powerful is verse 29, because in 29 he ends, he says that once you know me, knowing me, who's the receiver, Nyatva Mam, you have to know me, and I am the one who receives everything, all your tapas, all your rituals, all your yajnas. I am also Ishvara, the Supreme Lord of all the three loka. And most important, I am also a Suhrud. I am also your well-wisher, not only of you, of all beings. So know me and then focus on me, because dhyana is all about gaining this focus. And very important that we gain this focus on the Lord. And this word, he says, know me. How do we know the Lord? Do we really know who is Bhagwan? Chapter 6 will talk about this, but the entire set of chapters from 7 to 12 will talk about, in reality, who or what is this Bhagwan we are talking about. So again, save your curiosity. Chapter 7 and 12 is forthcoming, and we will know more about it. But having given this segue, now we move on to chapter 6, which is all about dhyana. We said way back in the roadmap that we need to have a mind which is focused, a mind which has got ekagrata, which has got aikyam. And once you focus it on what is relevant to us, which for us is the spiritual path, the goal of attaining Jivan Mukti, then the instrument that we use is the mind. The same mind which comes everywhere. So most of you may be familiar with Nisarga Datta Maharaj. He used to live in a chawl. He was actually had a tobacconist shop, but he was the jnani of the highest order. And some of his devotees said, Maharaj, you can't stay here. We will build a very nice apartment, a very nice house for you. Why don't you come and we'll take you there? He thought about it. Then he said, wherever I go, it's the same mind which is going to come with me, whether I go there or here. So what difference does it make? My mind is going to be with me, whether I stay in this chawl or whether I go and stay in a palatial place. So leave me alone. I'm very happy where I am. Which again brings back to the concept of mental models, which says that what we are is what our mind thinks. We are what we think. So very important as part of our roadmap to now focus on this instrument that we have, which is the mind. And dhyana is all about bringing the mind to play. Then we need to quickly distinguish between what is upasana, what is nidhyasana. So dhyana can have two parts to it. One is upasana, which is what generally people know about as meditation, where we focus on the Lord through various means. Nama japa is the most common way, but there are many ways to do it, and keep our focus on Him and slowly allow Him to come and manifest inside our mind, our hearts, so that we get cleansed. The other way is pursuing the jnana path. We need to go into nididhyasana. We have a small little credo in our satsang. We say suna mana kiya to jana. So, which is basically the same as Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. So, you listen to it through lectures, through talks, by sharing, by reading. Reflect upon it, do a Mananam so that we get actually clarified as to what we are really learning. And then comes the assimilation part, which is the Nididhyasana. And this is the part that is the toughest, because we are called into situations which can provoke us a lot. Now, Stephen Covey calls in his first habit, habit one, be proactive, by which he means that between the way we respond and between the stimulus that provokes us to have an action, between stimulus and response, introduce a pause. Because within the pause, you can then invoke Bhagwan through a prayer, ponder about what we need to do, then you progress into action. But at least now you're engaged, your intellect into it. And this is what Lord is saying. By Nidhityasana, what we mean is we intellectually, logically accept Bhagavan within us as our Atma, as Brahman, and then we start dwelling upon it. So every time we call upon it and affirm that Bhagavan is with us, which is where we see in Nirvana Shatakam, where he says Shivo Aham, Shivo Aham. He ends everything with Shivo Aham by negating everything else, Shankaracharya. So it's same thing, we have to bring this and have affirmations. So that is called Nididhyasana. And perhaps this chapter is a mix of both. Those who want to do Upasana can use the same chapter. Those who want to do Nididhyasana can also use the same chapter. Just the object differs. In one, the object is Bhagwan as a Saguna Ishvara form, and one, it is the Nirguna form, which is Brahman, which is the same as Atma. So just the context. So what is dhyana is just the focus, could be in both things, and yoga is connecting to this. What is the purpose of dhyana? The purpose of dhyana is to just make us one pointed, one focus, to give some kind of tranquility to this mind, which is like what they call monkey mind, darting all over the place, and then stabilize it so that these teachings can be assimilated, reflected upon, and then start applying it, the Kiya part of it. Uh, Again, I was very ambitious. I thought I'll touch upon Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is a very good introduction to chapter 6. But very briefly, what are the Ashtanga Yoga steps? One is Yama and Niyama, the do's and don'ts. And you would recollect Swami Sarvapriyananda, who had come to Singapore 2 years ago, and Swami Sadatmananda, who also spoke on meditation. And they said the fundamental foundation to a spiritual life is an ethical life. And Yama and Niyamas are nothing but the do's and don'ts, which talk about an ethical life. Because without an ethical life, we cannot pursue this path. And then how do we get, and then the moving on, asana and pranayama. Today's yoga is all, people think is all about asanas or pranayama, but they don't figure very, very huge in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, is the sthiram sukham iti asana. That means whatever is stable, whatever brings us peace and stability, that is really the yoga asana that we're talking about. Asana is again to make our body listen to our commands by doing all those different asanas, and make a breath in pranayama listen to our command by slowing it down, by helping it to stay more focused rather than having a very agitated kind of in and out breath. And then once we have achieved that, we are kind of semi-ready to take the next step. So pratyahara, where we withdraw all the things, our senses, the five sense organs, which are always roving around us, to withdraw it and bring it into to focus on one thing, which is the object of our focus. And then dharana, once we determine what is that object, hold it, dharna in Hindi, right? So hold it on that object and then start meditating dhyana, which will then lead us into samadhi. So very quickly, this is what Yoga Sutras talked about. And so if you see chapter 6, you'll find this being explained in different verses. All these things are figuring there. Then the various sadhanas, the process of actual dhyana, which is only a couple of verses. What are the benefits of doing dhyana? What are some of the obstacles in the solution? And then the concept, very, very uplifting concept of Yoga Prashta, which Karthik ji talked about. We'll touch a little bit upon that, about 6 or 7 verses. And then finally ending 2 verses and praising praise of the Dhyana Yogi, which is what this chapter about. Adhikari. Now, who is qualified to pursue this dhyana? So the Lord very clearly says in verse number 1 that who really is a sannyasi. A sannyasi is not one who renounces the rituals, the 5 rituals which dominated a lot in the Vedic age, where the grahastha was supposed to have a fire burning at all times and perform all sorts of yajna. The sannyasi is not doesn't have to do that. One of the first thing he renounces this is the yajna that is done, the havan that is undertaken by the grihastha. So the hallmark of a sannyasi in those days used to be turned, shaven head, robes, and then not performing any of the rituals, as the grihastha said. So Lord says, actually, all that is not important. If you do an action without expecting, without getting attached to the results, this is what we need to do, and we call ourselves a sannyasi. And again, I'll draw your attention to one book in the COVID times in 2020, which became a bestseller for quite a number of years, written by somebody called Jay Shetty, a very young guy, and the book is titled Think Like a Monk. And this person he's actually an Indian who's a UK citizen, born and brought up in the UK, and he watched a monk, ISKCON monk, and he thought that so much peace of this person, how does he achieve it? And that helped him to follow the path and go and land up in the Mumbai ashram of ISKCON. And his guru, Sri Radhanath Swami, taught him everything. 3 years he lived there, learned what it is to be like a monk, and his guru told him, you have a bigger purpose in life. Go back, continue what you're doing in the UK and in the global world, but change your thinking, change your attitude, and think like a monk. And so in that book, the whole book is like an autobiography where he writes about what are some of the techniques one can use. Very briefly, he says that we have a monkey mind which keeps darting from things to that. Instead, have a monk's mind. What is that mind? Another topic for another day. But more important, some of the other steps he talked about is letting go, which is tyaga, which is nothing but sannyasa. How do you let go of things so that your mind is at peace? And then how do you grow spiritually? What kind of activities can we do to always keep growing on the spiritual path? And then finally, a fundamental in everything that we are doing on the spiritual path is seva. How do we serve? How do you have this spirit of service, which then helps us to progress through this, which is nothing but karma yoga. Swami Paramathananda talks about the Pancha Mahayagna, our yajnas to our ancestors, to our pitrus, to the rishis and the scriptures, to Bhagwan, to all living beings, to jivas and all prakriti, nature, bhutas. So this is the kind of attitude one should have. I'm going to move on because again, Srinivasanji, I have another 10 minutes or 15 minutes because I started a bit late, sorry.
Yes, Ji, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
Bala,
you.
you can go ahead. You can go
I'll
ahead.
go up to 12. I'll try and end around 12:15.
Yeah. Maybe we'll cut down the question and answer session if necessary.
Okay. Thank you. So then he says further, the 3 and 4 talks about again further going into the qualifications. So he uses a word called aruruksha. So it's like climbing the steps or climbing on top of a horse. So he says that if you really want to go into pursuit of jnana, you have to master karma yoga first. And that is something that is insisted upon by our scriptures, because without doing karma yoga, without getting this samatvam, which is so critical for us, we will not be able to really focus on the jnanas, because to read this and acquire the knowledge, it needs a lot more logic, a lot more thinking, a lot more reflections, and an agitated mind really cannot do that. Does it mean that it has to be serial? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that simultaneously we need to pursue, but perhaps in the early stages we need to focus more on seva, on karma yoga, because gradually we need to get progress towards this state of samatvam, and simultaneously pursue reading scriptures, acquiring this knowledge. But we'll realize that slowly as the samatvam comes in and becomes more prominent in our thinking, then the love for the scriptures, the ability to recall, the ability to allow them to stick to our mind, the ability to apply them in day-to-day situations becomes stronger. And so that part will become more dominant. And Lord Krishna says that you have to go through that. What in the parlance of knowledge is called the sadhana chatushte sampatti, where he says that Shankaracharya talks about this in Tattva Bodha and Viveka Chudamani, where he says very quickly, he says that one need to first get the Viveka. First, he says, you will get the Viveka by understanding what is Atma and what is Anatma, what is real, what is unreal. Very simple, only Brahman, which is whether it's Saguna Brahman or Nirguna Brahman, Brahman is real. Everything that we see in the world, whether it be people, whether it be objects, whether it be situations, all are unreal. But unreal doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that they don't have an independent existence, and they will come and they will go. Bhagwan will remain with us forever. So once we have that viveka very clear in the mind, that will lead us to vairagya. Vairagya is nothing but renouncing, getting the detachment, because now we know the worldly samsaric things are not going to last. So why should we predicate our happiness or joy or everything that we are doing? Why should our purpose in life be something which is linked to samsara? Why should we not change to something that is permanent, which is going to be with us? This morning we were doing in our satsang Mukundamala, very utterly devout, where Kulashekara Alvar is talking about that, Lord, I don't know how many births I'll have. He's very humble. He never says that he's a jnani, he's not going to be reborn. I don't know how many births we'll have. All I need, my prayer to you is, help me to always think of your lotus feet at all times. So whatever happens, whether I go to heaven, I go to hell, whether I come back to Bhumi, all I need to have is your thoughts in my mind. And then I have this armor, this kavach. It doesn't matter what happens to us. So Bhagavan says that you need to get that vairagya. And then moving on, he'll say sadhana chatushya sampati, where he says 6 things that we need to work on. One is dhamma, control of senses, which Lord talks about a lot in chapter 2 and further in all the other chapters. And then shama, mental tranquility, which this chapter will focus on. Then he talks about uparati. If you recollect, he talks in 258 about being like a tortoise, which is withdrawing its limbs away from danger. Similarly, withdraw all our roving senses away from danger and bring it to us, which is pratyahara that I talked about. And then he talks about Shraddha, which is very, very important. No, sorry, before that, Titiksha, the endurance, which again he refers to in 2.14. But he says that we need, this will come and go. This is samsara. And this is always happens because of the contact of our senses with the sense objects. So you need to have that forbearance so that you can take it in your stride. And then Shraddha, you need to have this conviction, this knowledge is there for you for your own good. In spiritual path, they say, in the world of computers, when Windows was first introduced, they used to say YCYG, that what you see is what you get. So you see something, then you'll get it. Now, in the spiritual path, it's slightly different. What you believe, you will get. So first you start believing, and then it will start manifesting within us. The whole book, again, law of attraction, the whole book, in the everything to do with that is all about manifesting this as a reality, but starting with the thought, starting with that shraddha. And finally samadhana, which is nothing but concentration, focus. And what will all these happen lead us to? It will lead us to moksha, which is mumukshutvam. So that desire for liberation should be strong. And Acharya says that if that desire is not strong, you can do anything you want, everything else will fail because it will be very lukewarm. So all these things are what we need. In reality, it's not 4, but it is 9. 1, 2, 3, and then 6 from sadhana chatushte sampati, and the last one mumukshutvam. So these are the qualifications one needs to have. And again, I stress upon it because people tend to think meditation is so easy, we just start pursuing it, but it's not so easy. If you really want to be successful and achieve your goal, this is what we need to do. Then what are some of the sadhanas to be followed? Swami Paramarthananda splits it into 2 parts. Bahiranga, which is external, which in a way is it's the achara, the way we live our life. In the Vedic ages, they used to call sadachara. And again, there is a small little booklet on what is called sadachara. When you wake up, what you do, when you drink something, bathe, when you go to sleep, when you do your sandhya, what are all the practices that we do? So constantly we live with this tambura suti, thinking of Bhagavan firmly in our lives, in our mind at all times. And the verses 4 to 9 talks about it. Again, 4 to 9, I'll just touch upon it again for want of time. 4 to 9, we just talked about this, but more important there is number 5, which talks about what Karthikji said, self-effort. So self-belief, self-effort, Bhagwan's grace, very, very, very necessary. Swami Vivekananda had a wonderful quote where he says that if you don't believe in yourself, you really are the atheist. I don't believe, if you say I don't believe in myself, you don't have the confidence, then you're really an atheist, not the person who says, I don't know about God, I don't believe in God. So integrating ourselves and having this belief, I talked about mental models. Can we change our mental models to feel confident? Doesn't mean that we get into a stage of arrogance. Humility is still needed, but we are confident in what we are doing. So in this path, that self-belief of lifting ourselves, again, Karthikji talked about the two engines, one being our self-effort and other being Bhagwan's grace. So constantly invoking Lord to help us on this journey is very, very necessary. And putting in all the efforts, again, part of the sadhanas that we need to do. Furthermore, verses 7 and 8 really is 7. He says that this person again is has samatvam at all times, because he's the same whether it is in shitoshna, hot or cold, dukha or sukha, sorrow or joy, or in mana apamana. So you see, it attracts body, mind, intellect. Heat or cold attracts the body part of it. The emotional part of it, which is pleasure or sorrow, it talks about the emotional part, the mind part of it, and the intellect part, which talks about the mana apmana, the reputation part of it. So if you are able to master these and acquire samatvam, then indeed we are performing the sadhanas that are necessary to proceed towards this. What are some of the other sadhanas that we need to? 16 and 17 talks about moderation in everything we do, whether we sleep, whether we eat, whether we do recreational activities. Everything we do should be in moderation, which is what Lord Buddha latched upon, and his whole Buddhism is based on the middle path or moderation, that is called. And common sense tells us that we should not take to any extreme. Samatvam is all about achieving this equanimity by following a path of moderation. So 16, 17. So 4 to 9, 16 and 17 talks about sadhanas which we can incorporate in a way of life. And then what are some of the specific sadhanas which are preparatory sadhanas for dhyana? Talks about the way we need to sit, a comfortable asana. Doesn't mean it has to be sukhasana or padmasana or vajrasana. A comfortable, because we don't want ourselves fidgeting all the time. A seat, because it is believed that we need to have something which shields us from the energy levels of the ground, which will then actually the earth is supposed to suck in all our energy. So whatever energy we get through these practices should not get sucked in by the earth. So we have something like a seat, a mat, or something to cover it. And then the posture that we take, we should be very straight, spine should be straight, neck should be straight, eye should be pointing in the front. And actually he says you should look at the tip of your nose, which basically what he means is keep your eyes half closed so that you don't fall asleep. And then, if possible, sit in an isolated place. And more important, the mental part that we need to. How do we then start isolating and pushing these thoughts away from us so that our mind is now ready? And if we do all those things, if you are able to indeed live the way that is recommended, the achara that we need to have, do all the preparatory, build in the infrastructure that we need to build in, what will success look like? In corporate world, we always say when we do business planning, let's take our goal, have a visual, what will success look like? End of the year, this is our sales growth, this is the growth through new product, this is how much of time you have spent on employee training, our employee engagement survey. I'm just rambling, but these are typical things that happens in corporate. So you have a visual which says what does it look like, and day in and day out, 365 days, you watch it, and it gets ingrained and it becomes part of us, because now we have a visual which helps us to form a goal. So in verse number 18, he gives us this visual where he says that we should have our mind which is very restrained, and mind should be in engagement. And then further he says, in 18 he says that you should be like the lamp. Now if you imagine a lamp with a flickering flame, and the lamp is in a windless place, it's shielded by the wind, by windows, by a glass shield, by perspex, then how will it look? The shield will be totally unwavering, it will be unflickering. So in verse 19, he gives us this word picture that this person who has a restrained mind, who is a dhyana yogi, is like a lamp in a windless spot, it does not flicker. And so that is the visual we should have. And then in 20 to 23, he talks about how this person will behave. So in 20, he says that the mind becomes very quiet and he rejoices in the Atma. Atmana eva Atmani tushtam, we say, right? He doesn't seek his joy from the samsara objects, people, situations. Instead, he dwells inside and revels in Nama Japa, for example. Rama Nama, Rama, the word itself is Ramati iti Rama. Somebody gives joy to us. So in the Kali Yuga, it is said that Nama Japa is one which will give us the joy that we want. And then we get this limitless Ananda. 21 says, Sukham Athyantika. Yes. And what is this kind of Sukham? He says that this Sukham is such that remaining in this, we never slip back. And it gives us this totally unlimited Ananda. Our Upanishads talk about it. Those who are interested can go to Brahmananda Valli in Taittiriya Upanishad, where he says, what is this joy that we can get if you are able to achieve this focus on Brahman? Again, Swami Sarvaprayananda has a wonderful talk where he said, if you raise, I think, 10 to the power of 23, that is the equation that we have. That is the amount of joy we can get, almost infinite joy that we can get. And this joy in 22, he says that it cannot be shaken by anything. The greatest of calamity, Guruna Dukhena, that means Guru means very like a rock. The greatest of calamity will not shake our mind, will remain unperturbed. Like the yogi who said, what, and converted it to so what difference does it make to us? And then finally in 23 he gives a very kind of intriguing verse. He says that uh, what is yoga is really is dukkha sanyoga viyoga. That means you have you disassociate yourself with anything that gives you dukkha. So that yoga which helps you to disassociate yourself from anything which gives you dukkha is called yoga. So which means, in simple terms, it means your mind will be such that you will not be agitated by anything that happens to you. Further moving on, in 29 to 32, he talks about the mental attitude of such a person. And he says that this person sees the Atma in everyone. Sarva Atma Bhutatma. He says the same Atma. And what happens as a result of that? He has utter empathy. He has utter compassion for everyone. He rejoices in the joy of everyone. He shares the sorrow of everyone and lends a hand to help everyone. This is the ultimate goal that the Gita portrays to us, because once we become a jnani, the jnani is most compassionate and he always extends a hand to help everyone. So that's a word picture he portrays. Good for us to dwell upon it, visualize on it, and then it will help us to make this concrete. But because once we have this in mind, we can draw our own visual in words or pictures and say, this is our goal, this is what we will achieve, and the brain will start working to us. So power of habit says, anything we say, some people say you work on it for 21 days, some people say you work on it for 66 days. But the matter of fact is that if you keep focusing on it, it will become a reality. And that's what Lord is saying. So, but then what happens in the process, 24 to 26 talks about this mind will waver. It will go from place to place, from thought to thought. But gently we need to bring it back to the object in focus, which is Bhagwan or Nirguna Brahman. We saw that in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we need to do pratyahara, withdrawal, and then we need to go to dharana, where we hold this object firmly. So here he says, mind will dart from place to place, from thought to thought. Shanai, gently bring it back and focus on what you want to focus upon. And then Arjuna asks a question. You say all these things. This is the first question he asks in this chapter. But the mind is very chanchal. It is very powerful. It is very turbulent. And it's so powerful that it will sweep me away. You're saying all these things, but I don't think I'll be able to achieve it. So Lord Krishna doesn't say, no, you're saying something that's wrong. He says, yeah, I agree with you. Yes, it is possible. It is very difficult, but it is possible to master it. And how do you do that? He gives only two sadhanas, which is the solution to this obstacle of the chanchal mind. And he says, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Vairagya, as we saw sannyasa, another word, tyagam, another word. And we saw in chapter 5 that what sannyasa means is really letting go. And 35 is abhyasa, constantly pursuing it. Even a little drop of water falling on a mountain range can convert it into the Grand Canyon as we know of. It may take thousands of years. So what? Our Sanatana Dharma has given us umpteen janmas. So once we start working on it little by little, it'll grow and we'll master it. So that's the encouragement he gives. And then we move on to this Yoga Brashta. As a segue to this encouragement, Arjuna says, what happens if I pursue it or somebody pursue it and suddenly we go astray? Like a little cloud which is separated from the main body of the cloud, for the cloud, and then because of wind it is just swept away. Will I be swept away? Everything that I do is gone to waste. uh, okay, we can recall 2.40 in chapter 2 where Lord says everything that you do on the spiritual path, nothing will go waste, it is cumulative. And that is the assurance he gives us, bringing this concept of yoga prashta. He says that indeed it will, maybe in this life you may not make further progress, but you will be born into such circumstances, such an environment which will help you automatically to go back and connect with this body of knowledge, with this path, and continue from where we are. So all of us in satsang are none other than yoga brashtas, because we have connected with the Lord, we are connected in satsang because we are pursuing this path. And Bhagavan gives different environments, born in a family of yogis, born in a family of rich people, but ultimately the goal is the same. You will pursue and achieve this goal. So very, very resounding thing for us. We should never get dejected. We should always feel uplifted that indeed this knowledge is not going waste. It will manifest itself when we have the Shraddha, give it the time. Sai Baba always says Shraddha and Saburi. Patience should always go along with Shraddha. So wait and see, it will manifest, it will take time. And then finally, in praise of the Dhyana Yogi, because if we are talking about Srimad Bhagavatam, the praise always will be Lord Narayana. If you are looking at Shiva Purana, the praise always will be Lord Shiva. Or Skanda Purana, it will always be Kartikeya, or Devi Bhagavatam will be always be Devi. So similarly here, this chapter is all about that accomplished Dhyana Yogi. So he's praising this person. He's saying he is greater than any Karma Yogi, any Tapasvi, any Jnani also he says. So here we distinguish between a Jnani who's just gathering the knowledge like a Jignasu to an accomplished Jnani who's convinced because they have done the Nidhityasana, the assimilation. And finally, he ends this chapter with a very powerful statement. He says that, give me your mind, just focus on me, that among all the Dhyana yogis, the faithful one is the one who meditates upon me. Meditates upon whom? Upon me, Lord Krishna, upon Bhagavan. So visualize Bhagavan in a Saguna form manifesting within ourselves. So Swami Tejomahendra used to say, when he in his talks about Bhagavatam or Ramcharitmanas, he says that we do celebrate the birthdays of these people, Ramanavami or Krishna Ashtami. He says that if we create the necessary environment where our heart is pure, our mind is focused, we have nothing but goodwill towards all, we are totally compassionate and think well-being of everyone, then Bhagavan will manifest. It doesn't need a particular date for him to manifest. And once Bhagavan manifests in a heart, what will he do? I draw your attention to 18.61 in Bhagavad Gita, where he says that I am seated within your hearts and I will drive you like an instrument. Or 9.22, where he says Ananya Chinta, you give me your mind, think of me all times, I will take care of your yoga kshema. So that is what he's saying. I'm just going to end here with something which science is working upon. So there is a person called Dr. Andrew Newberg who's written a book, How God Changes Your Brain. And among many things, he says scientists know only the brain. They do not know the subtle mind or intellect, as he calls. He says by doing all this is by practicing, focusing on the Lord, our moods will change. It will become more positive. What else will change? We will have a more conscious awareness of our own self. It will shape our sensory perceptions to look at more sattvic things. it will generate peacefulness. Parts of our brain which are responsible for bringing tranquility, calmness in our mind will expand, and it will generate peacefulness, which will lead to more social awareness of the people around us. It will need more empathy and compassion for everyone, which is the Saratma Bhava that we're talking about. And then it will enhance creativity, it will enhance communion. So even science says that by performing a dhyana, the brain, the physical structure of this hardware, which we call brain, which in our scriptures is called the mind stuff or the chitta or the manas and the buddhi, will change. So that's the assurance science is giving us, which 5,000, 10,000 years ago, our Rishi Munis have already given us. So why not we take that to heart, have that Shraddha, and start doing everything that we can to manifest Bhagavan within us, whether Nirguna or Saguna doesn't matter, so that he can then drive our lives and we can become that Jnani that is glorified, whether he's a Sthita Prajna or whether he's a Jnani in chapter 5 or whether he's a Parabhakta in chapter 12, which is going to come along. So with that, this is a segue into chapters 7 to 12, because there Bhagavan is going to explain now whom should you focus on, who am I, and what is going to be your object of focus in dhyana. I'll end here. I apologize very sincerely for taking this extra time. I just couldn't stop myself. I'm very sorry. I cut short many things. Some other time I can expand it more in detail. Thanks to Srinivasan ji, thanks to Karthik ji and Anji for giving me this opportunity. Glories to our Guruji who's taught us and to lead us on this path. Glories to Swami Paramarthananda who's taught us a lot on this path. With that, hand it over back to you, Srinivasan ji. Jai Shri Krishna. Back to you. Hari Om.
Jai Shri Krishna. Thank you so much, Shibala. I think very extensive coverage of chapter 5 and chapter 6 have so many concepts, and within that short span of time that we have, thank you for taking us through all of them, and at least giving us an appetizer, getting us interested in wanting to look at it in a much deeper manner. We typically have a question and answer session, but considering how extensively you have covered the topic, we might have to cut it short a little bit. So I'm going to request everyone to do this. If you have a particular question that you would like Shibala to answer, I'm going to request you to put the question in the chat. Also give us your email address so that we can take this offline. We will request Shibala to look at the question and provide answers, and we will get back to you with all of the information, all of the answers which he is providing. So that is a general request to everyone. If you have questions, please do put it in the chat, and we will pass it to Shibala to answer them.
Sure, I'll do that. Sure. And sorry again for eating into your question answers time. Just
not at all, not at all.
Such a big chapter, 2 chapters with full of wisdom. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Actually, we should say sorry for not providing enough time, because it happens all the time that we have limited sessions. So strictly speaking, we should be having 2 sessions for 1 chapter throughout the year. That's the way some chapters are very broken, but we try to condense it. So we start off with things. I know we are actually giving a tough challenge to the speakers. So, but we'll try to see what best can be done. But we have done a wonderful job. And not to worry that you have taken extra time. There is no extra time taken. We are still within our scheduled time. So here are 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Doesn't matter. Thank you. Thank you, Pala. And that's why we are also shorten the question and answer session so that people can throw the questions. And possibly, Anand, I would suggest that if Bala is giving an email answer, then perhaps it can be put in shown in the next session or somewhere in the Gita. Gita is in the page for people to visit and see, not only for the questioner, for the others also.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'll send an email back to you, Srinivasan. Send me all the questions, I'll do it.
Yeah, okay, right.
Thank you.
Yes. How about the announcement?
See, Bala had also mentioned that the lectures by Swami Siddhartmananda, which happened, a couple back on chapter 6. So it was called Meditation on Meditator. Just to give you an information, the recordings of these are available on the Gita Jayanti YouTube channel. So please do take a look at these. Please do listen to these lectures for much detailed information about chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Quick reminder of a couple of events which are coming up. Again, Krishna Manjari is next week, where we have Vidushi Spurti Rao, who's going to enthrall us with bhajans. Please do get your tickets today. It's available online at gitajayanti.org.sg. Please do so. And then we have also the children's art competition. So please encourage children to, join the art competition and showcase their love for Lord Krishna through, their drawings. We also have what is called Likita Gita Samarpan. In addition to hearing about the Gita, and in addition to chanting and everything, we also invite you to write the Gita in whichever language you're comfortable with. Just take a notebook, you can write it in whichever language you're comfortable with. And when you finish writing, please bring this on the Mokshada Ekadasi day, where we will have a Sampurna Gita Parayan, a chanting of all of the 18 chapters of the Gita. We can then place this at the altar where we are expecting, close to 300, 400 people to join in the chanting. And once it is placed in the altar during the chanting, you can then take it back to your home, energized with all of the chanting and the pujas which are done, and have it at your home. Even if you start today, you will still be able to write 3 or 4 verses and comfortably complete the writing of the Gita shlokas by the Moksha Ekadashi day, which is going to be in December. So with that, we will have our closing prayers now. I will invite Lataji to chant the closing prayers.
1 second, Anand, can you also mention the next session will be on 6th September? It will be not.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So just after the closing prayers, I have that slide. I'll bring it up and just remind everyone. So
thank you.
Lataji,
Thank you.
please go ahead.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु.
As Srinivasanji just mentioned, the next Parayan, online Parayan and Satsang session will be on the 6th of September, 10:30 a.m. Please do join in. Please also encourage your friends and family to join in. With that, we are looking forward to meeting you at Krishna Manjari on the 4th, and then again on the Saturday, 6th September, we will also have the Gita Parayan. Thank you. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, thank you.
Hari Om. Before we close, we have to, I think, thank the chanters and as well as Anand for kindly, beautifully hosting the session. Thanks.